911, what is your emergency?
We have an incident at Darling Downs Zoo. It's Joanne. The lion. Oh God, her arm. She's bleeding out.
Sir, please stay calm. Can you confirm the location? Darling Downs Zoo, Hilton? What is the nature of the injury?
Lion attack. It's her arm. Severed. She's lost so much blood. We've got a tourniquet, but hurry, please.
Life has a way of lulling us into a false sense of security. We build routines, forge connections, and believe in the safety of our familiar worlds. But sometimes, in the blink of an eye, that world shatters. What happens when the wild, untamed power of nature collides with the everyday lives of ordinary people? What happens when a place designed for wonder becomes a scene of unimaginable horror? This is the story of Joanne Cabban, a woman whose life was deeply intertwined with the wild heart of Australia, and how a seemingly normal Sunday morning at her brother-in-law's zoo transformed into a fight for survival, leaving an indelible mark not just on her, but on an entire community. A stark reminder that even in controlled environments, the primal instincts of the animal kingdom always lurk, waiting. Joanne Cabban wasn't just a name in a headline. She was a vibrant 50-year-old school teacher dedicated to shaping young minds. Imagine her in the classroom, her voice clear and kind, guiding children through the mysteries of history or the wonders of literature. For decades, her world revolved around lesson plans, parent-teacher conferences, and the joyful chaos of school holidays. But Joanne had another passion, a place where she found a different kind of connection: the Darling Downs Zoo. This wasn't just any zoo, it was family. Her brother-in-law, Steve Robinson, was the owner, the visionary behind this unique wildlife sanctuary in Pilton, Queensland. For 20 years, through every school break, Joanne would make the pilgrimage. It was her escape, her personal retreat into the wild. Steve, a man who had poured his lifeblood into creating Darling Downs, saw Joanne not just as family, but as a much-loved member of the zoo's extended tribe. She wasn't an employee, no, but she moved through the zoo with an easy familiarity, almost like a second home. She knew the rhythms of the place, the early morning quiet before the crowds, the distinct calls of its inhabitants. She'd watch the keepers, fascinated by their intricate dance with the animals, learning about their habits, their quirks. It was a bond built on shared passion, on a mutual respect for the incredible creatures that called the zoo home. For Joanne, these visits weren't just passive observation, they were an immersion. She was part of the fabric of Darling Downs, a silent guardian, a keen observer. She'd seen lions before, of course, many times. She knew their power, their raw, untamed might. But for 2 decades, that power had remained contained, a spectacle to be admired, a wonder to be respected from a safe distance. What could possibly go wrong? To understand the horrifying events of that Sunday morning, we must first understand the creature at its heart, the African lion. These are not cuddly house cats. These are apex predators, built for raw power and efficiency. A fully grown male, like the one involved in this incident, can weigh upwards of 400 pounds, stand nearly 4 feet tall at the shoulder, and stretch over 8 feet from nose to tail. Their paws, enormous and padded, conceal retractable claws sharp as razors, capable of tearing through flesh and bone with terrifying ease. Originating from the vast savannas and grasslands of Africa, lions are highly social animals, living in prides. But even within their social structures, their predatory instincts are paramount. Their roar, a deep, resonant rumble, can be heard for miles, a declaration of territory and dominance. In a zoo environment, these instincts are channeled, managed, but never truly extinguished. They remain wild animals, despite generations born in captivity. The lion involved in Joanne's attack resided in one of Darling Downs Zoo's original enclosures, a habitat that had stood for 2 decades without incident. It was designed to contain, to separate, to protect both animal and human. But lions, for all their power, can also be surprisingly agile and possess an unnerving curiosity. Their behavior, while often predictable to experienced handlers, can sometimes defy expectations, especially when a novel stimulus is introduced. They are creatures of instinct, and instinct, when unleashed, is a force beyond human control. And sometimes, a single, unexpected moment can bridge the unbridgeable gap between the wild and the domesticated, with devastating consequences. For 20 years, Joanne's visits to Darling Downs Zoo had been a testament to safety. 2 decades without a single major incident involving the carnivore enclosures. It fostered a sense of comfort, a routine. Joanne had observed the keepers countless times, their meticulous dance around the powerful animals. She saw the precision, the distance, the respect. Perhaps, over time, that unwavering record of safety, that consistent routine, began to subtly erode the sharp edge of caution. It's human nature to become accustomed, even complacent, in familiar surroundings. Was there a gradual, imperceptible creep closer to the barriers? Did the line between observer and participant blur over time? While Joanne was never a zoo employee, her prolonged presence, her connection to the owners, might have afforded her access, or at least a sense of permission, that others didn't share. She wasn't just a visitor, she was part of the family. The investigation would later delve into this. Were there subtle warnings, ignored or simply misinterpreted? Did the lion, in its natural curiosity, exhibit behaviors that, in hindsight, might have signaled a burgeoning interest in the human activity nearby? A paw reaching through the mesh, a playful bat at a stray leaf, actions easily dismissed as mere animal antics. But with a creature of this magnitude, play can carry a deadly potential. The exact chain of events leading up to the final moment remains shrouded in the chaotic aftermath. But one thing is clear. The robust wall of safety, built over 2 decades, was about to crack. And no one saw the fissure until it was too late. Sunday, July 6, 2025. The morning dawned like any other at Darling Downs Zoo. The air was crisp, the sky a brilliant, cloudless blue. Before the gates swung open to the eager public, a familiar hum of activity began. Keepers moved about, preparing for the day, their routines ingrained. Among them, though not working, was Joanne Cabban. It was a school holiday, and she was doing what she loved. Observing, soaking in the unique atmosphere of the zoo. She gravitated, as she often did, towards the carnivore precinct. The raw power of the big cats held a particular fascination. She watched the keepers from a distance, absorbed in their precise movements. The lion, a magnificent male, was in its enclosure. Perhaps it was resting, perhaps it was stirring. The details leading up to the exact moment are agonizingly sparse. A horrifying blank in the collective memory of those present. Then, inexplicably, it happened. In a fraction of a second, the world tilted on its axis. One moment, Joanne was observing. The next, a flash of tawny fur, a blur of immense power. The lion, through some unseen gap or simply by extending its massive paw through the mesh, reached out. It wasn't a roar of aggression, not a predatory lunge to escape. According to the zoo owner, it was described as just playing. But for a creature of this size and strength, play is a concept fraught with peril. The lion's paw, equipped with those terrifying claws, closed around Joanne's arm. The force, the sheer unimaginable power of it, was instantaneous and devastating. A sickening, tearing sound. A scream tore from Joanne's throat, a primal sound of agony, but it was cut short, muffled by the horror unfolding. The lion held on. It wasn't trying to pull her into the enclosure. It was simply holding. But the damage was already done. The delicate structure of flesh, muscle, and bone shattered. No one directly witnessed the exact moment of the grab, but other staff members were nearby, the sounds of the attack, the sudden, terrible silence, piercing through the morning quiet. One staff member, whose quick thinking would ultimately save Joanne's life, sprang into action. He saw the horror, the blood, the unimaginable injury. He saw the life draining from Joanne, felt the urgency of every passing second. There was no time to hesitate, no time to second guess. He had to act. And he knew exactly what he needed. Chaos erupted. The immediate aftermath was a blur of adrenaline and desperate improvisation. The staff member, later hailed as a hero, didn't waste a second. He was a man of action, and in a life-or-death situation, instinct took over. His eyes scanned frantically, desperately. A leather belt. His wife's leather belt. It wasn't perfect, but it was all he had. With trembling hands but unwavering resolve, he applied it, cinching it tight around Joanne's mangled arm, above the catastrophic injury. A makeshift tourniquet, the only hope of stemming the torrent of blood. Every second counted. He knew it. They all knew it. The life was seeping out of her, pooling on the ground, a gruesome testimony to the lion's terrifying power. Another thermal blanket was quickly produced, wrapped around her, not just for warmth, but for comfort, for the desperate hope of containing the shock. Meanwhile, the 911 call had gone out. Steve Robinson, the zoo owner, Joanne's brother-in-law, his voice raw with terror and disbelief, relayed the horrifying details to the dispatcher. An animal attack, severe injury, loss of limb. The word lion hung heavy in the air, a chilling descriptor. Paramedics were dispatched immediately. The nearest medical helicopter was scrambled. The race against time was on. Within minutes, the first responders arrived. The calm, professional demeanor of the paramedics was a stark contrast to the palpable panic of the zoo staff. They moved with purpose, their training kicking in. They took over the makeshift tourniquet, replacing it with professional medical equipment, stabilizing Joanne as best they could. The immediate focus was on stopping the bleeding, maintaining her vital signs. She was barely conscious, fading in and out, her body in profound shock. The roar of the helicopter blades filled the air as it landed in an open space nearby. Joanne, her life hanging by a thread, was carefully loaded aboard. The journey to Brisbane's Princess Alexandra Hospital would be critical. Every bump, every moment was a fight for survival. Witnesses, the staff members who were there, could only recount fragments, their minds still reeling from the sudden, brutal violence. It was so fast, one might have whispered, just a blur. I thought she was gone, another might have confessed, the horror still fresh in their eyes. The lion, meanwhile, remained in its enclosure, an indifferent king, seemingly unaware of the havoc it had wreaked. The enclosure that had held it for 20 years, now forever stained with the memory of that horrifying grab. In the sterile, fluorescent glare of Princess Alexandra Hospital, Joanne Cabban fought for her life. The hours following the attack were a blur of emergency surgery, a desperate attempt to stabilize her, to save what could be saved. She had lost an arm, a profound and life-altering injury, but she was alive. As news began to trickle out, a wave of shock rippled through the community. A school teacher, a beloved family member, attacked at a zoo? It was almost unbelievable. The media descended, ravenous for details. Television crews, newspaper reporters, their questions sharp and unrelenting. Steve Robinson, the zoo owner, found himself thrust into an unenviable spotlight. He faced the cameras, his voice thick with emotion, confirming the tragic incident. His priority was Joanne's recovery, but he also had a defiant message about the animal involved. "The lion will not be put down," Steve stated, his words firm. This was not the lion's fault. His declaration sparked a debate. For some, it was a compassionate understanding of animal behavior. For others, a baffling decision. How could a creature that inflicted such grievous harm escape consequence? But for Steve, it was clear. The lion was acting on instinct, in its natural habitat, however confined. The fault, if there was any, lay not with the animal, but perhaps with the circumstances that allowed such a dangerous interaction. Workplace health and safety. Queensland immediately launched a full investigation. Their mission? To meticulously reconstruct the events of that day. How did the lion gain access to Joanne's arm? Was there a breach in safety protocols? Were the enclosures up to standard? Every detail, every dimension, every potential loophole was scrutinized. The zoo staff, shaken but cooperative, provided full access, offering their accounts, reliving the horror for the investigators. Internal reports were compiled, diagrams drawn, measurements taken. The enclosure, previously a symbol of security, was now under intense scrutiny. Public reaction was a whirlwind of emotions. Outpourings of sympathy for Joanne, well wishes flooding social media. But also concern. Questions about zoo safety, calls for stricter regulations. Protests, perhaps small but vocal, arose from animal rights groups, reigniting debates about keeping wild animals in captivity. The incident touched a nerve, forcing people to confront the inherent risks of human-animal interaction, even in controlled environments. Meanwhile, the Darling Downs Zoo, after a brief closure to deal with the immediate aftermath and the initial investigation, quietly reopened its doors. But one offering was conspicuously absent: lion encounters, a stark reminder of the day everything changed. As of mid-July 25, Joanne Cabban remained in stable condition, surrounded by the unwavering love of her family. Her physical wounds were healing, but the scars, both visible and invisible, would last a lifetime. Her profession as a teacher, her future, irrevocably altered. The incident was not just a news story. It was a devastating personal tragedy, a family's ordeal, and a chilling lesson for anyone who ventures too close to the wild heart of nature. We build fences, we create barriers, we define boundaries, but the wild, in its essence, remains untamed. The horrifying moments of Joanne Cabban's encounter at Darling Downs Zoo stand as a brutal reminder. Nature, in all its majestic power, is not a plaything. It is a force to be respected, from a distance, because sometimes, even in what seems like a moment of innocent play, the instincts of a predator can shatter a life forever. And the line between fascination and fatality can be thinner than we dare to imagine.